Let's welcome Natalia.
Yeah, that's true. I have like 30 minutes of experience with NativeScript, but I am a brave person, and you can see because I'm using Comic Sans in my presentation, and I don't think any of you dares to do that, but I do. So, yes.
That's a very stylish slide.
I think you're all wondering, what is she doing there, like with this white screen in the background? And that's what your users are thinking when they do the startup of their apps, and this comes up for 1 second, for 2 seconds, for 3 seconds. You count it. Like the same way you were feeling like, why is she making us waste our time here, like with this blank screen? This is what they are thinking before they abandon or even, put the app in the bin. So I don't think I have to go too much in depth of why performance matters. And yes, I am not a mobile developer. I'm a web developer. But I think when it comes to performance, the same principles apply. You have users, you want them to stay at your website, at your app. You want them to return. You want them to return investment for your clients. And in order to do that, there is a lot of thinking behind. It's not just sitting at the keyboard and coding. Yeah, that's amazing. You code very fast. You use the best patterns. You're the most amazing developer. But if the result is not performant, nobody will care. And your clients will be very angry. So yes, I'm Natalia Bendito. I don't want to introduce too much myself. I've been working in front-end development for quite a while, maybe since this type font was cool. And I think Stack Overflow got it from me because I did this like 2 weeks ago, and then they did this April's Fool prank, and they use pretty much the same. But yeah, let's talk about release results per type. And I'm not even putting Android here because it's like +2 or by 2, sorry, all of these numbers. But on cold start, you can see the numbers. For native developers, it's a bit easier or better results. But when we are working in NativeScript, we may get in even NativeScript plus Angular, they, boost. So 694 milliseconds may not be that bad, but according to some sources that I don't even remember, and sorry, I'm not naming them, but 20% of the users, when they start up the application, you know how many milliseconds they are expecting for it to last on loading? They want it to load now. And yeah, they want it to load now. And if it doesn't, well, it's useless for them. So they probably won't open it again. They will just get rid of it. That's a pretty ambitious wish. And how do you get there? How do you get to making an app, not starting up now, but relatively fast? Well, you have to think of the concept of budgets. You have to impose yourself a budget in time or in kilobytes of whatever download you're going to bundle. You have to think of patterns, how you're going to distribute, how you're going to be importing modules, how you're going to make things ready for the app to work. And you have to think of a good strategy of caching, obviously. So like I said, this may be mobile, but these are exactly the same principles we use in web development to make things performant. Because, yeah, let's face it, we are JavaScript developers. Doesn't matter if it's NativeScript, if it's Angular, if in the end, in the background, we are all working with JavaScript, and JavaScript is expensive, okay? So how do you make it less expensive? Well, we use tools that aid us into doing this. And I think, it was mentioned today, Webpack. I think I heard it's going to be coming by default or pretty soon. Who uses Webpack? Yeah, pretty much everybody. Then we're on the right path. I mean, it's a way to go, right? And if you are using Webpack, you may have to kind of do some workarounds in your configurations in order to make things work. But what kind of advantages you get? Well, yes, you get bundling. You can control better that, but we are going to be speaking about a little bit more in depth. Not too much in depth, but what else can we get from Webpack? So this is how you get it installed, and this is how you, for example, bundle an iOS application. When I did this, after I had my application, pseudo application, I panicked because it was like the whole console went red, but the application was working. So anyway, I think there are things to work on over there. But yes, you can bundle your application with Webpack. And what does it mean? That it means that if you have many modules that you're importing on startup, then you can assemble them, you can aggregate them, you can leverage the tree shaking, you can do the code elimination. Not so sure about this last part in your context. But yes, in the end, you end up with, instead of having to import multiple modules on startup, having a couple of bundles or so. You can even have more control over what bundles you'll have, which is, by the way, the technique of code splitting, right? So it can be that you want to decide, for example, if I am on the first page of my application or view or whatever it's called, I don't want this chunk n, for example, because it doesn't mean anything at this time. And this is super important. Don't deliver anything on startup that you're not going to use or that your user may not be interested in using, right? So yes, in order to even make it faster and take more advantage of Webpack, you have two different, let's say, features that you want to take a look at. One is the AOT, or ahead of time compilation for Angular, and the other one is the V8 heap snapshot. Snapshot concept is pretty much used in software development. Like you take a photo of your application, and what it does is it keeps it as a blob, and then when you are starting up the application, it uses it. So it doesn't have to do all the compilation and building when the user is there waiting. And for the AOT, or ahead of time compilation, why is it important? In the context of Angular, it's important because it helps with lazy loading, which is what we described before. So if you are in the first page of the application, and then you have a feature that is going to come much later, why do you need it there? You really don't need it. Okay? So this is why I said it's part of the architecture thinking at the very beginning of your design of the application, how you're going to distribute your imports, what do you need for each thing to work. And then you can configure your Webpack to make sure that things are there only when you need them, right? In the case of lazy loading, basically this is the syntax, and this load children method, what it does is it's importing this module after the hash. So it's just another syntax to do exactly the same as require, but in a different way, right? So yes, apart from knowing exactly what you need at your bootstrap, what services, what resources you need to know what you need when it's loaded, what is visible. This is the most important. This is what we call the critical rendering path in web development. When the user loads a page, what's in the viewport, right? Because the rest doesn't matter. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind when you design your strategy for code splitting. And then, as a user scrolls down, perhaps, if you have a good caching strategy, then you can make sure or ensure that everything goes smoothly. Yeah? So for example, what is the most expensive resource the user is going to bring to your application from external sources? Maybe you have a good strategy to cache things that you have in your file system, and that's an advantage you have that we don't, that you can more or less bundle a lot of resources and have them always there. But you are also probably going to be connected to external APIs and to external storage systems, and you're going to be bringing or fetching stuff, and you also need to have this cache or preloaded, or you need to have ways to make it render faster for them. Because yes, this moment, like the perception of speed is super important for the user, right? So make it visible. Put a loader, put a placeholder, do things that indicate the user that something is happening. If you have a blank screen, they don't know what's going on, boom. I am, for example, very, very demanding with apps. I have I don't have too many apps. I think I have most apps that come with my phone, but downloaded, I don't really do it. I am very picky, and this is why. And the same when I'm browsing the internet. I really want speed, maybe because I'm a developer, yes, and can be considered like any one of you a super user because we know this. But just imagine whomever, the regular user, not understanding what's going on with their time and their money, because this is the most important part, especially for mobile, that here in Europe, we enjoy flat rates. We enjoy more or less the luxury of navigating all we want, but that's not the case for the whole world. And when we design an application, we don't know where it ends, and we need to be, thinking about these users that don't enjoy the same benefits, right? So this is like, one of the modules that is core to NativeScript. It allows you to cache your images. It even allows you to, or has some methods to replace for a placeholder, and I found it one of the most interesting things, and it works really good. And I know in my company, we are developing with NativeScript many applications, and they got rid of many of the caching proxies they had because this worked really good. So make use of it. So yes, another thing you may want to consider is it's super good that you have access to all these APIs that are native to the operating system, because then you can see other indicators of what the user may need at a time. And I know that you get requirements sometimes, and you have to do in your applications what you are told you have to do, but there's this professional pride of wanting our development to be useful and to be liked by people, right? And it happened to me the last time I was in Amsterdam. I went to an Angular meetup, and I arrived super late. It was very cold in comparison with Barcelona, where I'm located, and I had 6% of battery in my phone, right? I got down in the wrong station, and I didn't know where I was going. And this Google Maps application kept lagging at the startup, maybe because obviously my phone was almost dead. But just consider, and in this moment for me it was critical to have a way to communicate with the outside world, and it was critical to use my resources or the resources of my phone in a good way because I was about to run out of them. So I was thinking, what should I do? Should I check the maps? Will it give me the right information? Should I call somebody to do it for me? When the user is in this critical, let's say, almost out of battery state, if you are in your application, maybe you can use this to decide, am I going to deliver to them some long-running process that is going to kill their CPU and is going to kill their battery super fast? Maybe not. So you have all this information, use it. Use it to make decisions in your development, to make sure that your users love you for taking care of them, right? So it's not only the battery, it's also the service, like the signal. All these things that you can use to decide what feature or not you're going to provide, what you're going to import or not, what matters at the moment. So yes, apart from battery, apart from connection, not all phones are the same, right? They may look the same, but again, here we are, I don't know, maybe in our group of developers, we probably all have high-end phones, we probably all have iPhones, and we do our testing in those devices, and we say, everything works perfectly. This operation or this calculation or this whatever don't really represent a lot of exhaustion of resources. But think about that not all of your users are on these conditions. So this is very important part of performance, that we try to find a middle ground or try to detect features that tell us where we are, so we deliver one thing or another. Similar experience or not, but an experience that every user enjoys regardless of these conditions. And yes, again, we are here, but your application may end up being used in Africa, in Asia, in places where they don't enjoy of just going to the store and buying the latest iPhone. So yes, like said, you can get indicators. You can get indicators of, I don't know, you're online, you have 90% battery, I'm gonna give you my full application, I'm gonna give you everything I have. Or you're offline, what am I gonna give you? I mean, the offline experience also matters, because we think we're connected all the time, but we are not. Like, we are sometimes, who's been on a flight and then you grab your phone and you want to use it, but you don't have any connection. We need to start thinking about this parallel experience of no connection, because it happens. And yes, there are alternatives that require some infrastructure, like today we were told about Firebase, supports offline. But yeah, maybe you don't have this infrastructure behind you, but you can still do or make decisions to provide another experience in this condition. So what do we do when we are offline? We can offload. So yes, we have one thread, contrary to what some other native mobile developers do. They have several threads to do several things, but as NativeScript developers, you have only one, right? It's good because you can access all the APIs, but in the end, you have to be careful how you use them, right? How can you offload? Well, without abusing, because this is pretty, heavy weight, you can use web workers. Who has used web workers with your application? Yeah, quite a few people have, and it's super simple. I mean, you can already think about it, okay, the application starts up, I'm going to even import some modules into this web worker. So later, if the user continues to consume resources, we can continue to do stuff, right? And I can continue to engage this user into staying in my context, right? So yes, like I said, it's pretty simple, and what the worker does is creates an alternative thread. You can even have several threads running. Like I said, don't abuse, because this is also not lightweight. but you don't have to disturb the UI thread where the user is at, and you can do calculations, you can fetch data and process it, you can keep it there for an offline state, and yes, and then deliver it whenever it's necessary, whenever those indicators tell you that you may not be able to fetch it from the outside world. So, okay, we have ways to detect in our operating system, that's easy, and we have ways of detecting whether we have a high percentage of life or not, or power for each device. That's so simple to do. It's amazing. I mean, that we have the luxury of working in JavaScript and at the same time leveraging all these APIs. And yes, and with Webpack, using the worker loader requests a little bit more like configuration, but it's fine. By the way, when I installed Webpack and I saw how many lines of configuration you get in this default file, it's better if you aggregate this. Like, this is a different story and a different tip, but aggregating configuration for such a big feature that sometimes features are not really related. You can separate whatever is visual like CSS or whatever is JavaScript, whatever are the loaders, and then aggregate them as you need them. So yes, basically, if you're in the context of Angular and you're working with TypeScript, you're going to have to make sure that the loaders are using the Webpack in this case, and compile the files with a TS loader, right? So you need to make sure that these files are also going through the TypeScript loader. Otherwise, as you know, Webpack only understands JavaScript. So whatever else you give it, it's going to cause errors. And then, yes, if you are, again, in Angular, you're going to have to declare your type. But then writing a loader is as simple as this. So this is all you need. Okay, if you do other operations on it, then you're going to need more code typing. But this is all you need to have a worker running. So keep it in mind. And I wanted to show it, but I think it's not even like, it's just a way of showing, okay, if you are with a certain amount of battery, I'm going to give you this that I have in my loader for you to play or for you to work with. But my phone just died. Okay, so profiling. I'm not going to show the profiler because I've seen a talk from 2 years ago. It was Tanimira and Alex, I think, and they did a very good job in showing how this profiler works, the timeline view, so you can see the advantage of implementing Webpack and how the times are really reduced when you're code splitting versus when you are importing sometimes dozens, hundreds of modules at the startup time. Then, yeah, finally, this is how you get it. This is how you enable it in your package.json, and you have it available for both operating systems. Don't forget to, if you use workers, terminate them, and promise me you're going to think about performance, about the users, and about whatever you can make for them to have a better time using your applications. Thank you very much.